Good afternoon. Welcome to Cabinet on Tuesday, 13th of November 2018 at 4 p.m. Membership of the committee, we've got apologies from Councillor Muskan, who's on holiday, and Councillor Masood Ahmed, who just rang me just now. He's had a bit of a car accident, but he's okay, but it's just that his car's damaged a bit. Item 2, interests. Kathy?
Yes, Chair, I'm a family member living in a K&H property.
Actually, my mum's a K&H tenant as well, so interest from myself. Anybody else? No. Item 3, admission of the public. We haven't got anybody from the public. Any deputations and petitions? No, thank you. Public question time. We've got no members of the public. Member question time. Councillor Martin Ball, up to.
Thank you, Chair. Couple of questions. Firstly, could I ask if yourself and the Cabinet will join me in publicly congratulating Joanne Bartholomew, who received a Royal Humane Society Award and a Chief Constable's Commendation for life-saving. I saw it reported on K&H social media. The story, if anybody wishes to read it, is on there, and I think what Joanne did was exemplary and selfless, and I would hope that everyone would join me in congratulating her.
Yeah, congratulations to Joanne. I'll ask my Cabinet member, Cathy Scott, who probably will respond more fully than I can. Thank you, Cathy.
No, I'll just add to what Martin said. Yes, she is to be congratulated. It's a wonderful award. Who better deserving person than Joanne Bartholomew? So I think all the Cabinet members will have seen it, and they may equally want to say anything, but I'm proud, very proud of Joanne of what she's done. So.
Thank you. David?
So it's come on now. Anyone who hasn't read the blog about what she actually did, it is amazing. If anybody who hasn't read it, please read. Well, she saw someone who was struggling. She said she saw somebody walking out. She was driving home from work. She saw somebody walking down the side of the street who looked to be in difficulty, a woman in slippers. She went to a dam, and so Joanne tried to help her. But she went into a reservoir, into a dam, out on the jetty, and jumped in the water. And Joanne jumped in and pulled her out. It's incredible. I mean, on her own, nobody else were helping, and she just took her shoes and jumped in, got her out of the water, and got her out. It's absolutely incredible. I mean, she really deserves the award. So, I mean, if you haven't read it, please go out and read the account of it. It is really incredible.
Nahid?
I was with Joanne this morning, and I said, well deserved, and she says, I didn't do it for the award, but it's very humbling. So I'd like to say, well done, Joanne.
Yeah, thank you. Any more members? No, I think what David said, I have not seen the blog, but to actually jump in and save somebody's life, especially when you see somebody struggling, it's a natural reaction that she actually operated, and she actually could have put her own self at risk as well. So it's I think it's a really well-deserved award, and it's really great that we've got people like that working for us. You know, just show that we care. Thank you. Any more questions, Martin?
Thanks for that, yeah, and thanks for everybody's comments. Yesterday in Parliament, Sustrans, the Sustainable Transport Charity, released a new report with members of Parliament present. It's called Paths for Everyone, and is a review of the National Cycle Network, which are the blue signs that you see around the area. As colleagues hopefully will know, Sustrans are the owners of the Spen Valley Greenway and have assisted Kirklees in developing our sustainable transport in the area. There are 15 recommendations in the report, which I commend to everybody, but in particular, the two, I think, which are quite salient are to remove barriers on the pathway and the network to improve accessibility, because many barriers that we see on the National Cycle Network are very difficult for people with mobility problems, wheelchairs, adapted cycles, and so on. And I would hope that that would be embraced. And also another which I think is key, and I've raised this at West Yorkshire Combined Authority on several occasions, that we need to have a quality standard of path width and surfacing for a national cycle network. I don't know if anybody has had a chance to read the report, but if I could leave that and probably have a supplementary, Chair.
Thank you, Martin. I've not read that, what was launched in Parliament yesterday, Sustrans, but I'm sure my Cabinet member, Nahid, will look into that and look into that quality standard you're talking about, because I think, you know, to set a standard across everything we do is either way forward. I don't know, Nahid, do you want to add anything? And Dave, I'll put it in.
I am aware of the report, Martin. I haven't had the chance to actually read it, and we will definitely look towards ensuring that our standards and the quality of pathways in Kirklees are accessible at all times, if possible, given the finance restraints. But I will definitely read and allow my officers to have a look at the report and the recommendations within it. Thank you.
I haven't read the full report, but I've read the reports of the report, Martin. But I mean, there is another debate that's going on at the moment, and I think it is time that we ought to be reviewing it. The debate about separation of cyclists from cars on when they've got a road down the side, and the danger of armadillos. And they so-called separate that curb thing on the armadillos to motorcyclists and pedestrians. They've been, in most of the birds at that point have been taking them out because they're even more dangerous. They're not protecting cyclists, but they're extremely dangerous to motorcyclists and to pedestrians. So I think that the whole debate about how we separate cycling, because I think the report says quite clearly, it says it's much better to keep if they are totally separate rather than that. The laying down the side of because what they're saying as well is they're laying down the side. That report says if they're laying down the side of the road, which we've got, encourages cars to go nearer to push bikes than they would have done without that lane. They feel, oh, that's their bit, this is our bit, I'll go down next to it. So I think there's a lot of issues in there, Martin. I think you're right that we do need to fully assess that report and what it said. But I think we need a refresh of our thinking about cycling.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. Martin, do you want to supplement? Is that okay?
And again, thanks, comments. And as David says, we do need a refresh because it's probably 20 years ago when we started with the Spen Valley Greenway, following which, in the early days of it, we had a scrutiny review, and the recommendations from that was we should develop the Greenway network on former rail corridors where they exist, and sadly we seem to have drifted away from that to the detriment, I think. And sadly, again, in this report, Kirklees is mentioned as one of the areas needing improvements. On page 27 of the report, it does mention the lack of connectivity for the Greenway network where it passes through Murfield. So hopefully, I know Sustrans are looking at that. Prior to this report, I cycled from Bradford through to Huddersfield. One of the officers of Sustrans was going for a meeting with Kirklees, and he's looked at the network through there, so hopefully we'll finally see that gap plugged.
David?
I have to comment on that, and Martin knows full well what I'm going to say, is that we did have proposals to extend the Greenway through Murfield on the canal towpath. We had proposals to open the bridge up and extend the Murfield Greenway across the road and into the Lower Spen Valley Park. And we had, I think at that time, I think it was something in the order of 600,000, but I just don't quote me on the figures that we had in the budget to do that. And we attended Murfield Parish Council, who were protesting against it and said they didn't want it. And one of the parish council at that time happened to be sitting in this room now, and they were protesting strongly against putting it, because and I'll quote what they said is, how can you put cycles on a towpath, they'll fall in the river and drown, and then you'll all be sued. That wasn't Martin, that was one of the other councillors who happens to be on both councils who said that. But the money, so because Murfield Parish Council decided they didn't want the cycleway extended through Murfield, we put the money into Chickenley The bridge we opened that bridge up instead with it. So they had the chance of 600,000 and Murfield Parish Council campaigned against it and stopped it happening.
Chair. Yes, you did have the money. The point that was at issue, David, and I'll extend the same challenge as I have to Cabinet on cycling in Berry Brow, is if any Cabinet members, the Chief Executive or the Head of Highways wants to come and cycle with me under the bridges, it wasn't particularly the towpath, but there are bridges around there which have very poor visibility. In fact, the Mayor will know them quite well because that's one place where the Mayor used to moor her boat. So if you want to come and try and put the kind of numbers of people, and as we were just referring to there, the standard, high-quality standard, we had an alternative that didn't use that, but that's why the money was diverted. But I'm glad David partially remembers it.
Martin had an alternative that would have cost £1.5 million, which was to build a new bridge across the Calder, which we'd never have the money for, and we wouldn't have had. But he had the chance at 600,000, he had the chance for a bridge being refurbished. We'd actually bought some land, secured some land of a private developer to make it all work, and the Murfield Parish Council, acting in their rights as a parish council, said the people of Murfield didn't want to cycle way through Murfield, and they stopped it happening because they couldn't have the £1.5 million bridge that Martin favoured.
Thank you. Martin, I think you've both had your say, and I think one thing is good that you both support this initiative, which is good. I mean, we must move on. Thank you, Martin. You got any more questions, Martin? You want to talk on an item, don't you? Yeah. What item do you know? Eight. Number 8. Yeah, sure you can. Yeah, no, we'll get to it. Thank you. Item 7. Let me put my glasses on. Arrangements for establishing of a West Yorkshire Urban Traffic Management Control Service. Is that Peter?
Yeah. Must welcome the fact that we're trying to develop a one UTC system throughout the whole of West Yorkshire, for all the key officers to be brought together, that we've got one system, one headquarters and so on. If we develop that network, and there's money to do it, it will be the biggest intervention which will have the most impact in terms of relieving congestion, in terms of air quality, any other measure we might take. Kirklees has pioneered this. Kirklees' systems are relatively sophisticated. While we're putting in the ducting to make all these traffic lights intelligent, interactive, easing traffic flows and so on, there's an opportunity also for broadband linkages and for the fibre optic network to be pulled together. Because while they're ducting, they might as well do it all together. So it's really good news. I had one reservation about the staff transferring to Leeds. I don't see any logic why they would transfer to Leeds. Logically, they would transfer to the combined authority. And I think they should look at that issue, because if anyone's leading and pioneering, it's Kirklees, not Leeds. Albeit the headquarters is in Leeds, it's by the way. But really, this is an all-West Yorkshire system, not a Leeds system. No, it's not the reinvention of HETS.
Nahid, do you want to second that?
I'd just like to support Councillor McBride. A very exciting scheme. We're leading in terms of the intelligent lighting system, and if all our ducting and everything goes ahead, I think we would have a very special place which controls traffic, controls air quality, and enables us to move beyond just traffic lighting system onto more broadband highway systems.
Thank you. David?
A couple of points. One to emphasise what Peter said about air quality. We had a meeting about, we happened to have in Etman White one of the notifiable areas for air quality, which is the Swan traffic lights. And the meeting we had with the officers who've been working on that scheme said the only possible thing they can do to alleviate the pollution at that site is the control of having intelligent traffic lights. Because physically there's nothing they can do about the road. Physically there's no bypass, there's nowhere they can send other transport anywhere else. And at that junction there's no room to do anything different. The only thing they can do is have more intelligent traffic lights. So that's one point. Another point is that I think that I do need to bring up is that some of the sensors on some of our traffic lights do not recognise motorbikes. I think we need to check up on that because when you sit waiting at the traffic lights, they just will not change until a car comes. It gets extremely frustrating, to say the least. And the other thing is, just a semantic thing, is actually the recommendation that you've made, Peter, doesn't say anything.
No, it's the opposite of Britain. And I'm really saying, I have to take that recommendation back and look at where... I have to take that recommendation back and look at where these officers might be lodged in terms of their employment. Logically, there's a big team of West Yorkshire. There's no issue about them going to Leeds. The issue really is who employs them, and logically it should be West Yorkshire.
But Peter, can you... I mean, if we're passing a recommendation, the one that's in the paper doesn't actually, from you, doesn't explain what you want. So can you say what you're wanting us to pass? Because...
The redeployment of the relevant officers to West Yorkshire rather than to Leeds, because it just makes more sense.
But you also want us to note and approve the principle, don't you?
The principle of their transfer and their pulling them together as one team, that makes great sense.
The truth, it doesn't actually say that,
Yes.
I suppose.
So, Peter, your recommendation is to actually ask the Combined Authority to look at how they can redeploy their staff to make maximum impact. Right, okay, yeah, we've captured that. Martin, you've got your hand up?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And just, I fully endorse what you say, Peter, and I thought your recommendation was captured on page 8 in item 7.1, where it says that consideration ought to be given to the shared service being operated by the Combined Authority. I thought that captured exactly what you said, Peter. But I fully support, as you say, that it does seem rather wasteful to be transferring officers from Kirklees to Leeds Council with the administration and everything else, and then in the not too distant future we'll be transferring them into another authority. They might as well go straight into the Combined Authority, where the outputs of this can be viewed under the Transport Committee, as they should be. And just picking up on David's point, it's not just motorbikes, David, sometimes that lights don't work for. There are other users. And it's worse for vulnerable road. And you'll have another air quality area, or a couple of air quality areas, which hopefully better traffic lights will manage, because as you know, the side of Huddersfield Road, from the former Fountain traffic lights all the way down to the Swan, is in your ward, where you come past Barnfield, past the yew tree. But the air quality there from traffic queuing as a result of traffic lights must get better if we have better traffic lights. So hopefully we'll see that.
Dave?
The difference is that the Swan is the only notifiable area that's reached that limit. The rest of that thing, yes, it will improve it, but it's not notifiable. It doesn't reach that level where we have to produce a plan.
So, can we approve the recommendations on item 6 and item 7? Is that okay? And 7, yeah. Thank you, members. Item 8, West Yorkshire Plus Transport Fund Scheme update. Peter?
Yep. The last item was really the less sexy part of the scheme, in the sense that people won't see the impacts of the last scheme. In this case, we're looking at a glance at all the interventions and developments of the West Yorkshire Transport Fund relative to Kirklees. And you can see it's a massive programme. If you add up the total cost of all that you can see in the appendix, it's about £400 million. However, that isn't going to be spent instantly. It's a programme over a number of years, over 15 years, that will be spent. I could see that it's addressing our immediate needs in terms of the key arterial routeway network, but it also is responding to a demand that there will be following the implementation of the local plan. So you can see the interventions are all over Kirklees. In the north, the big one is the North Kirklees Orbital Road, a massive scheme which would ultimately link the M1 to the M62. You've got a development on the A644 to relieve the horrendous traffic on that road between Martin, you'll be interested in this, Murfield, all the way to Dewsbury. In Huddersfield, key intervention points at gateways, Leeds Road being one, Lockwood Bar another. So the interventions are various. There's a scheme already in operation, the A629, particularly on the Halifax, on the Calderdale side of that development. But we approved only a few months ago our part of that development, which will be Halifax Road. So a big programme, and it's indicative of how we, together with the combined authority and our district partners, can bring about an improvement in the main arterial network. Recommend it, Chair.
Thank you, Peter. Naheed, you want to?
I'd like to second the report. It demonstrates partnership working. It's a large number of phased development interventions which enhance the network, our road network and passenger experience, and improve future networks within the district, and will enhance going forward the local plan and the predicted housing build developments.
Thank you. We all agreed. Martin, you want to talk on this? Yeah. Oh, it's good.
Thank you. And interesting report. First, as a general principle, Chair, and bear in mind what we were talking about at the last item. And I know this is obviously one of your key leadership concerns, is the air quality of the borough. These kind of reports, major strategic developments coming forward, I would like to suggest should, as well as other items in them, like implications of the Council on early intervention and prevention, economic resilience, could I suggest that you take consideration of the fact that major reports should have an air quality impact assessment report in them? Air quality impact assessment report. If we're doing something with, be it a road scheme or other developments, then clearly there are impacts on air quality. One of them, if we look at the Halifax-Huddersfield A629 corridor, we know that our neighbours in Calderdale, supported by the Combined Authority and Council of Firth, have made a wall alongside the A629 into what they call the living wall. This is a natural mechanism for absorbing toxins from the air, similar to that which was raised at Council last week about other areas doing what they call a moss tree. So here we have Calderdale on the A629 corridor using money from this facility to improve air quality. And I'd like to see that kind of thing incorporated, these assessment. When we're consulting people, let's tell them. Talking of consultation, Chair, the A62 Smart Corridor. I went to the exhibition at the library, which I had difficulty in getting towards the information boards because there was in the middle of a lot of seating and there were people sitting around there. There were no officers who you could ask questions about. I'm told subsequently by officers that we have no data available on this scheme in terms of what are the impacts on journey time. Because one of the key things, I'll refer back to a proposition that the Liberal Democrat administration had in the early part of 2000. They had a £15 million scheme for Cooper Bridge gyratory, which, when we investigated it, it was going to take 2 minutes longer to get through the scheme after it was built from North Kirklees than before. So when we're consulting people, it's okay putting the designs out and showing what the road might look like, and a lot of this we may and could have, because in particular for the cycle infrastructure, it was maybe this, maybe that, maybe the advisory lanes. So how can people make a definitive response to the consultation if there's no data on it? On the North Kirklees Orbital Road, which Peter's referred to, a couple of points. Could I ask if the two roads it mentions in the introductory paragraph are the A644 and A638, what impact will it have on the A62? The A62, A644 Wakefield Road Link Road, also known as the Cooper Bridge Bypass. There is a list of issues here, and one of them in 210.2 talks about the highways improvement around this area will form a gateway to Huddersfield. Again, may I remind colleagues and officers that there are more parts of the borough than Huddersfield. Coming in to this junction from the M62, you're actually entering Kirklees. So let's not just be Huddersfield-centric. If we're going to be spending this kind of money on a major junction, it's not a gateway to Huddersfield, because in actual fact, to get to Huddersfield, when you turn right at Cooper Bridge, you go through Calderdale for a short section. But it is a gateway to Kirklees, and I'd like to see that endorsed. And finally, Chair, I'm pleased to see on page 17 in item 2.18 that something which I know, Peter, has been an aspiration of yours for over a decade, of reopening the subway under the railway lines to connect the front of Huddersfield railway station to the St George's warehouse and car park, is now mentioned in here, that we're looking at that, because I know certainly officers and railway people were very sceptical when we raised it in 2006. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. Peter, do you want to respond?
The paper is just an update on a very great variety of schemes. There's far more detail, every scheme, most of which at one stage or another have been before this Cabinet, and which often you've been present at when we have presented, Martin. So if there's no detail on greening, etc., believe me, there is greening elements in every one of those schemes, not least of which was the one you were referring to. It's a major feature of the scheme. With regard to the A629, there's a greening element there. Agreed, predominantly the greening is on the other side of the motorway. It's actually in Calderdale. But nonetheless, it's indicative the whole West Yorkshire programme will include greening of all elements where there are major interventions. I can't respond to literally every point you're making, Martin. If you look at all those schemes together, you are genuinely talking about a gateway, a movement into both Kirklees and into Huddersfield, because these routes refer not merely to entrances into Huddersfield, but entrances also into Kirklees. For example, what is referred to as the Cooper Bridge scheme is much more than Cooper Bridge. It is coming off the motorway down to the new system that's going to be created to embrace Bradley, and then a road which will come ultimately going across to, what's the road? The fact that they're not all referred to, you know, if we'd given the details of literally all those schemes, you'd have had double these papers alone. So there's no intention to hide anything from anybody.
Thank you, Peter. Are we all okay to accept that report? Thank you, members. Item 9, HRA Capital Plan, Councillor Graham Turner. HRA, sorry, Cathy.
Thank you, Chair. This report comes before Cabinet to consider a 5-year capital plan of the HRA, and I'm sure you would all agree that in order for our residents to thrive and prosper, we need quality homes which are affordable, warm, safe, and that people should live in, also an attractive environment. This report sets out a plan that recognises the importance of maintaining our existing council housing to the best possible standard, but it also recognises that in improving health, we need to improve our estates and the whole environment, the package around it. This report recommends a new holistic approach to delivering capital investment in the council homes and neighbourhoods. Rather than using an approach and replacing individual components such as your kitchens, your bathrooms, your heatings for each individual homes, this new different way of doing things over a 5-year plan, you can actually do it in one place, one household at a time. The plan will deliver more property improvements at the same time, so it will reduce long-term duplication and disruption of associated return visits. This affects our tenants as well, so it's complementing our tenants, you know, to say that if we're going to come in, we'll do it once rather than coming backwards and forwards. So section 2 of the report also provides information on the estates that's included for the 5-year capital plan, so that's all the work that will go under it. Alongside it, the resources will be funded through programme works, which has been developed in using stock and condition data. So we've got all that, gathered all that information. We know what the stock's like, we know what conditions, you know, the estates are in. The approach will bring efficiencies, cost savings, meaning that we can do more of the same. The plan delivers a combined delivery package of improvements. So, as I said before, it's a single visit rather than constantly coming backwards and forwards. So I do hope that Cabinet will support this initiative, a 5-year plan, but I want to offer that reassurance out there. There will be properties ongoing, there will be visits required for maintenance. That will still be happening. So I don't want you to think that it's 5 years before they get to me. If it's needed, they will come out. So, okay.
Thank you, Cathy. Peter, second that report. Thank you. Are we all okay with that report? Thank you. Item 10, Corporate Financial Monitoring Report, Q2 18-19. Graham.
Thank you, Chair. This is Q2, as laid out in the report. As members will have read, the position hasn't changed very much recently. We still are predicting an overspend in SEND. Officers are working hard to mitigate that across other parts of the council. All in all, it's pretty much steady as we go. Hopefully, as tradition, spending tends to tail off in the last 2 quarters of the year, so hopefully we'll come back nearer on track as the year goes on. Thank you.
Thank you. Second that report? Yeah. Thank you, Dave. Are we all okay to approve that report, members? Thank you very much. Item 11, Inclusion and Diversity Report and Year 2 Action Plan. I'm going to talk on this. Our diversity strategy 17-21 entered into the 2nd year. Last year, we were looking internally within our own organisation with a view to actually getting our own house in order. We've made some improvements within the council, which are in the report. Year 2 is more outward focus and looking at what we can do in terms of the council. Examples cited in the report include supporting internships for students, looking at grade 13 and above to make sure that underrepresented groups are actually given an opportunity to progress within the organisation and beyond. Diversity training, not just for employees but also for councillors, and there'll be diversity training taking place for cabinet members and senior management team. So we look forward to that. This report is going to go to full council on the 12th of December. So I'm looking forward to that big debate, because I think since this report was written, I'm sad to say that we have still some big issues in our communities, and I hope that we can actually get a more rich and more fruitful discussion at annual council on the 12th of December. So I'd like to just move the report with a view to debating it in full council. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dave. Any comments? It's going to go to full council. Thank you very much, members. Item 12, Councillor Masood's not here, so I'll ask Councillor Viv Kendrick to move this report. Thank you, Viv.
Tonight I am Councillor Masood Ahmed. This report on the provision of transitional places at Headland School for children with autism spectrum disorder must be very familiar to colleagues. I think we've looked at this several times, and the reason for that is in order to make a change, which the school are wanting to make the change, and we're in agreement as an authority, it has to follow a four-stage statutory process. But it was agreed, and members will probably recall, that there was a desire to do a non-statutory consultation prior to that, which has taken place, and the details about the responses are as part of that report. It is now felt that the changes should go forward now to that four-stage statutory process, which includes publication, representation, the actual decision and then the implementation. And I know it will seem perhaps to someone, if someone's looking at this for the first time, that this is a reduction in provision, but in actual fact the investment of staff from here will be into the central unit that goes out and supports children in mainstream schools across Kirklees, which is what parents are telling us that they want. And there were 2 children in the unit. One child continues in that school with outreach support, and another child has gone to another provision, and staff have been offered places in the central support unit. So I would ask Cabinet to be mindful and to support the decision that this now goes through the statutory process as it's listed under section 7 on page 10.
Thanks, Councillor Biff Kendrick, and thank you for stepping into Masood's shoes at the last minute, and thank you for a comprehensive report. Are we all okay to agree with them recommendations? Thank you very much. Item 13, it's the West Yorkshire and Harrogate Health and Care Partnership. Members will know that it's a 5-year strategic plan that we're actually looking at, and the move and focus is based on place-based planning, and this looks at the Kirklees system view across the partnership. It's been developed with CCGs, clinical commissioning groups, hospitals, mental health trusts, local social care and other council services, and the voluntary and community sector and Health Watch. It's been endorsed by a number of organisations that includes Integrated Commissioning Board, Integrated Provider Board, Health and Care Executive and the Health and Wellbeing Board. The overview is across Kirklees and draws on a wide range of existing strategies and plans. Headlines in the report are creating communities where people can start well and live well, create integrated person-centred support, develop our people to deliver the priorities, develop the estate to deliver high-quality services which serve the needs of local communities, and not last but least, is harness digital solutions. IT infrastructure is critical in terms of moving forward. Delivering these will actually ensure that we make healthy weight the norm. Big issues around obesity will actually be tackled. More people feel connected to their communities and feel more engaged. Big issue around loneliness that needs to be tackled, which links to mental health conditions as well. So again, this actually focuses on getting better outcomes around these kinds of issues. Inclusive proportion of feeling in control and ensuring that people feel healthy and have healthier lifestyles, and also narrowing the gap in healthy life expectancy. We hear far too often that people in one part of the authority can live a lot longer than another part of the authority, and this is also a national norm in terms of various parts of the country. The plans build on activity undertaken by organisations working with 9 primary care networks. Populations range from 30 to 50,000, and the focus is on early intervention and prevention and analysing the cause of poor health. What the report tries to do is empower people to stay independent with more support in the community or at home. Work with a single group of hospitals, the West Yorkshire Association of Acute Trusts and a single group of mental health providers, and the West Yorkshire Mental Health Service collaboration. We're looking at developing a single approach to commissioning services across the council and the 2 CCGs, and basically to actually make sure that the systems are open, transparent and involve communities and the workforce to develop better outcomes. So I'd like to move the health and wellbeing plan and at the same time recognise the importance in considering the implications of the Kirklees health and wellbeing plan when we develop our plans. So I'm happy to take any questions on that. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dave. No, 14 there. That was 13. Yeah. The Kirklees Health and Wellbeing. Oh, sorry, I've had the wrong one. No, I haven't. I've done the right one. I'm trying. Yeah. Oh no, sorry, I've done the wrong one. Yeah. Sorry, my mistake. I've got 2 reports. Yeah. I've moved 14. Yeah. I've got. Yeah. Thank you very much. Andrea, my mistake. You are right. Yeah. So what I've just said, all that is for item 14. So is that okay? Right. Thank you very much. I can't say that all that again. Right. Let's move to item. Oh, sorry, Martin.
Thank you, Chair. And if you'd said you were moving on to that, I'd have probably scribbled a few more notes down, because that's one of the key things. Item 14, the Kirklees Health and Wellbeing Plan, which I think you were referring to eventually then, sets out that the Council wants to, and its partners want to be ambitious with this plan. Is that correct, yeah? In those ambitions, which I welcome, what I think we should see, but I can't immediately see, particularly not being ambitious and to the forefront, is what targets you and the partners are setting, what outcomes and what measurements, so that during the life of this plan, we'll be able to come back and look at how the ambition has lasted to the reality. There are a couple of specific items, having said that as a general principle, that I'd like you to consider. On page 172 of item 14, living well, tackling the underlying causes of poor health and wellbeing. The Healthy Places talks about the Council and others in this avoiding allocating land for development in areas, and as it says, with the worst air quality. Again, reflecting back to previous discussions, will that only be areas with defined air quality management, or will it be areas where we know that there are issues through congestion, through industry or other? Because the previous discussion said that we're addressing areas where we only identified and weren't taking preventative measures. And on page 177, Chair, something which I'm sure that you will join me in welcoming, is the issue on maintaining independence. Talks about social prescribing. You and I attended an LGA function last week where we heard some very good experiences of this from people in the medical profession. And I look forward to seeing Kirklees picking up social prescribing with the same ambition that the report sets out. Thank you.
I'll take the social prescribing first, because I think that yeah, no, it's not. But I think it was a really good event last week when you and I were in Nottingham, and hopefully, right, yeah, we can learn lessons from other places. But I've also learned that we actually do quite a lot of social prescribing at the moment within our PCTs, and I'm sure Viv knows a lot more detail about that. So although it was really interesting to learn about, right, yeah, it was also pleasing to know that we've actually been doing a lot of this stuff a lot of the time, but we can always learn from others. Going back into the targets and all the rest of it, I don't want to get bogged down in statistics and whatever. But one thing I know that some basic stuff within our authority, it keeps on coming year on year in terms of health inequalities, and to me, right, yeah, the cutting through the mustard is actually we need to make sure that the most vulnerable, the most deprived, the folk that actually live in some of our most poorest areas, actually from birth they're actually at a disadvantage, and we need to actually get that sort of stuff right, the basics right. So it's like from birth to the grave, cradle to grave. In terms of air quality and all that stuff, one of the things we picked up, and I'm sure you picked it up as well last week as well, that these new vehicles that they've developed, where you can charge them to reduce your emissions, it was worrying to learn, and you see, I think it's been on national media as well, that a lot of the vehicles that have been launched actually don't really make any savings in terms of efficiency, because a lot of people, and again, these are big companies that actually buy the fleet because they're cheap, they get a government subsidy, but they forget to actually connect them, so they're still actually polluting the environment. And the reason why they're actually buying these cars is because it actually provides a bigger profit onto their balance sheet. Because if the big companies that are buying all these vehicles actually put a little bit of effort into making sure that their employees actually are connecting and charging, A, it'll be better for the environment, and B, it'll be better for their balance sheet because they'll actually get 140 miles per gallon rather than getting 40 miles per gallon. So there's some basic stuff around air quality that we all need to take responsibility for. And I think that's what we need to actually communicate to our residents, to our communities, because that's what they understand. If I sit here and start talking about targets and stats and this and that, like, yeah, I'm not connecting to our communities. But there's some stuff, the basic stuff that we need to do. And one thing, like, the monastery, I think that is something that we can understand. That actually, how can we actually use vegetation to actually eradicate pollutions naturally? And the community will understand that, and that's something we can engage with. David?
Wrong one. I don't know if Martin was referring to, on the, you mentioned it on the vehicles. The report was only out last week, I think it was, that actually said that the firms were not actually using charging whatsoever. They were taking the money, taking the subsidy from the government, but not using charging just to save money. Now, that smacks to me very much like the problem there's been in Northern Ireland, an investigation into Northern Ireland about environmental schemes, and the government that set a scheme up that allowed people to use it just to milk money out of the government rather than doing anything for the environment. I think that should be investigated. The other side of it is that, yes, we do want those vehicles, but the government's reducing the amount of subsidy for electric vehicles. They've just announced this week they're reducing the subsidy by over 2,000 per vehicle for electric vehicles. So they've stated they want all vehicles to be electric by 2030, which I think is totally... I just think when anybody believes that's going to happen, they'll also believe in fairness, I think. But I just think that if you reduce the subsidy, that's not really getting the right messages out about people switching to electric. So I think, yes, I hope that we can get more efficient vehicles. There's a big argument now saying that the new petrol engines are going to be less harmful to the environment if you take the totality of the production of electricity and the production of the batteries in together, that some petrol engines can be better for the environment than electric ones. So I don't think that argument is over yet. The idea of everything switching to electric in 10 years' time, or 12 years' time, I think, is a debate that's going to go on for a lot longer.
Any more comments? Viv, did you have your hand up? No, I thought you were. Right, okay. Martin, you want to come back in?
Thanks, Chair. And yeah, the comments about vehicle emissions is interesting, but the specific point relating to this report on page 172, which I asked about, was that one of your aims is avoiding allocating land for development in areas with the worst air quality. It says it in the report. And what I'd sought clarity on was how that was being defined. Whether, as David had said before, it's only places where you have designated and air quality management areas, or are we using our intelligence to say that, yes, these areas have poor air quality, either from traffic, from industry or other factors, and therefore we won't allow land for development within them, as the report says? I'm just seeking clarity on what your report actually says, Chair.
Thank you, Martin. Let me, because people at home won't see this report. This report is a report which has got links on, and it says Kirklees local plan, and it's highlighted and underlined, and there'll be a link there. So when you press on this link on your computer, it will actually take you to the detail behind this. And David is quite right in saying that we will only make a statement like this if we've got some actions behind it. So there are actions behind it. It also talks about the Kirklees economic strategy. Again, there's a link there. So when you click on that link, it will take you to the detail behind this. But at the same time, right, yeah, I think what we were talking about is that the stuff that we can do that will actually make a bigger impact, along with what we've actually got in this report. Thank you. Are we all okay to approve this report? Yeah, I know, you can't, Martin, you can't do it on hard copy. You need to have a computer and you need to click and it will get there. Thank you. Okay, I'm okay with that. Yeah, absolutely. You're right. Okay, members, are we okay with that? Thank you. Okay, we're on item 13 now, the West Yorkshire Harrogate Health and Care Partnership. This has been developing since 2016. The partnership comprises of 30 organisations, which includes all councils in the West Yorkshire, Harrogate and Craven area. The agreement basically formalises what we've been doing for a number of years. It's important to note that this is not a legal partnership. We still remain sovereign as a local authority, so we can actually do what we want, and if we don't feel that things are going in our direction, we can always reconsider our position. This has also been approved by NHS England, and it will act as a shadow integrated care system. It will enable the partnership to take power and budgets and start to look at, initially, the transformation funding. So there's major opportunities for us. The partnership board includes the chairs and chief execs of NHS organisation, health and wellbeing board chairs across all the authorities, and the chief execs of all local authorities. And it will have an independent chair, and will meet at least 4 times a year. The system will actually provide an oversight and assurance group to make sure that there's mechanisms in place to actually make sure that we try and achieve the outcomes that we actually aspiring to. MOU is the memorandum of understanding will be reviewed after a year. Basically, it's to develop more stronger relationships and more stronger links between councils and the health system with all the organisations within there. Focus is on partnership on prevention, investment in prevention, primary care, mental health, community wellbeing and community care. And it's about joining up health and social care together. The allocation of resources will hopefully become more transparent, because at the moment we've got a system where the NHS spends billions and there's no proper accountability. As a local authority, we know that we are a lot more accountable to our communities, so this will hopefully bring that a bit more closer. It's important to know that this is not about privatisation. This is actually, the way I see it, is actually keep them services within the public sector realm, and the focus is on reducing the health inequalities within our communities. So the recommendation is to note the revisions that are within the paper, continue to advocate for greater emphasis, use partnership to build stronger relationships with councils, and the final point, which is quite important, is that once the MOU has been fully understood and agreed, that will then be delegated to Chief Exec to sign off, and the Cabinet will get regular reports, and I'm sure that we'll keep on sort of like reviewing and scrutinising this. So I'd like to move the recommendations. Thank you. Second, thank you. Are we all okay? Thank you very much. Item 15, adult social care offer. Viv?
Thank you, Chair. And now tonight I am Councillor Muzarat Khan. Absolutely. This report seeks Cabinet approval for the launch of the adult social care offer products, they're called, in particular the resource allocation system and the direct payments policy. And you will find draft explanations of those at the back of the report. I'm sure you've read those. In order to get to this point, adult services have run a series of engagement activities with service users, carers and the stakeholders over several months, and I know actually increased the level of time for one group that have missed the timescales. There's been a lot of insight and feedback, and that's refined this policy and the processes, and to me has demonstrated really effective example of co-production, which I think the Council needs to move more and more towards. There previously hasn't been a clear policy on direct payments, and I know that to my cost trying to get my head round some issues in the past. And this work sought to rectify that, and actually enables a level of discretion at times, recognising that one size doesn't fit all, one situation isn't the same for every person who needs care. The service has also received additional feedback from Adult Social Care Scrutiny Panel, and attached to this report, as I said, is the draft document explaining direct payments and also the resource allocation system. And I think it's very clear, and carers and service users have contributed to that information. If the Cabinet are minded to agree the recommendation, then this document will be launched on the 1st of January 2019, and it will be a living document. It will change over time as different things change, and in the meantime staff will be trained around the process and the information. So I would heartily recommend, as I know Councillor Calm would if she were here, that Cabinet agree this document.
Thank you. I'd like to second that. Any comments? Martin?
Thank you.
I'll let him go.
Just if we can have a point of clarification, having the recommendation having been moved. The recommendation in the report, page 211, item 7, is that the Cabinet member's recommendation is that this proceed to November Cabinet as planned. It doesn't actually recommend any further action. The officer recommendation talks about flight paths and various other things. Unusually, it doesn't even endorse the officer recommendation. So could I suggest, for the purposes of clarity, that a recommendation is moved that members can vote on other than proceeding to November Cabinet as planned?
I'm sure Viv mentioned it, but do you want to come back in that, Viv? I'm sure you mentioned that.
For clarity and for the sake of Councillor Bolt being very clear about this, I would ask the Cabinet to approve the launch of the adult care offer products for its launch in March 2019, and for staff to be trained in those issues, and that is recognised as a living document that will change and adjust, and I hope Cabinet members are in agreement with that.
Graham, you had your hand up.
Yeah, Chair, I'd like to welcome this report. It's a bit overdue, shall we say, but the degree of flexibility allows people in the future to look after their own care, use the resources to suit their specific needs. Must be welcomed. I think it's a major step forward for this authority, and I welcome it.
Thank you, members. Are we all okay with that report? Thank you very much. That's the end of the Cabinet. I think we've got something afterwards. So, yeah, thank you very much.